But yes, I actually don't know 100% how to start this one, but I did get a message from Fool Dan, who is here with us in the crowd tonight. And this is going to be kind of an unusual talk because I don't actually 100% know how much this is going to relate to you if you are a human. If you're a computer engine, if you're up there, this is more of a lecture for the future, for when the robots take over and everybody's 3,000 plus at chess. Because I kind of want to go through this really interesting line in the Stafford Gambit and show a lot of places where even Stockfish messes up the evaluation. So there's going to be a lot of positions where Stockfish gets up to like +8, +10 territory, but you actually can trick it and still win. And this all kind of came about because previously I put out a video. It was about 2 months ago that I put out a video on the YouTube channel. And the video was called "This Impossible Stafford Gambit Line is Pure Magic," where it was a human versus Stockfish games. It was one of these games that I do a lot on the channel, where it was me battling against Stockfish. And what's really cool about it is it actually seems to have had a very huge impact on Lee chess, in the sense that a lot of people have actually started playing this. This was something I invented, and now it's really kind of gained a lot of popularity. And so it's just really cool to see somebody play it, especially somebody that we all know and love here at the Vampire Chicken community, play it against a Grandmaster. And I think for this lecture, sometimes it's good to hide stuff. Like I'm going to leave the whole database and I'm going to leave the computer engine running for this entire thing. Because I think it's actually kind of cool what happens with the evaluation. So this will give away everything and I won't be able to be like, pause here and see what's going on. But in a lot of the cases, it's good to just know what the computer thinks. And then, because a lot of the times we're just going to disobey everything, and a lot of the times Stockfish might even be able to get it wrong. But this is Fool Dan, and he was playing in a 31-board Simul, if I understand it right, against Benjamin Bach, who's a Grandmaster right here in St. Louis. So I know Benjamin pretty well. And he's actually been doing quite a lot of different Simuls. So this one was 31. I think he's working up. He's probably just trying to do more and more every single time. And apparently, when the Stafford appeared on the board, which of course comes out of the Petrov defense, knight to c6 was played, and we got the Stafford Gambit. So I guess the story goes that Mr. Buck said something like to the extent of, oh, you can't do that. I'm a Grandmaster. You can't play these kinds of openings against me. So let's just see. Let's run through it and see if it really is possible. And we're also taking into account the Grandmaster's playing 30 other games at the same time. So, takes, d3. And we might be able to come back and show off some of the other, anti-engine prep moves in this position. But d3 is definitely one of the top computer choices. It's the move that Stockfish seems to really like. And it's one of the most critical ways for white to continue. Bishop to c5. Uh-oh. Do we have a lights out situation? Sorry, let me take a nap real quick. Uh-oh. The lights went out. I didn't pay the bills. Uh-oh. I'm back. Sorry about that. There's so many cables here now. It's so easy for me to mess up anything. But Black's point here is that he's just setting up his pieces as aggressively as possible. He's probably going to be playing like h5, knight g4, and going for an all-out attack, maybe white castles, and just gets checkmated in a whole bunch of games. But against a well-prepared opponent, bishop to e2, controlling the g4 square, is going to be one of the most expected moves. And in this position, h5 was played. So if you do castle, it probably is a little bit dangerous. If you look, this is the Lee Chess database. So it's Lee Chess players of all sorts of different ratings. Most people are castling, and it gets a little bit dangerous. Knight g4 looks like it's going to be the main way to continue, followed by like queen to d6, and you try to get some sort of attack. Okay, so this is pretty dangerous. A more solid way, a more convincing way, if you just check out the Stockfish evaluation, is to play c3, just with the big idea that you're going to be pushing in the middle. Right? Okay, looks great. Everything looks great for white. But here is where you can actually play the magic line. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure if knight to g4 had been played before I made my video, but it's now the most popular move with 1,371 different games. And I can't remember if knight to g4 had ever been played, if that was my actual novelty, but for sure, after d4, my novel idea in this position is queen to h4, completely ignoring the fact that our bishop is hanging. So here, obviously, bishop to b6, supernatural, scores great. But queen to h4, I'm also glad to announce, is scoring very well. And this is the magic line. This is the very start. We are going to have pieces hanging in the early part of this opening for sure. Now comes g3, best move, played by the Grandmaster as well. Queen to f6, and here there are a couple different ideas that white has tried. In the game, f3 was played, and this is still the Stockfish recommended move, or at least the move Stockfish played against me. But there are other moves, so we can come back and we can look at some other things, particularly castling. I think there are some lines in castling where you're actually able to defeat Stockfish. They're not as impressive. I think they're boring, and they're like 80 moves and whatever. And it's pretty much the same with bishop to f3. With bishop to f3, I don't think I ever won. Bishop to f3, there's like, you can maybe make a draw, but it's also really lame and boring. But we can come back after the game and take a look here. But after f3, I guess Fool Dan was saying even this move came as a bit of a surprise. And it's also cool looking at this now with Stockfish 12. So maybe a lot of my analysis will be different, because I don't think h4 was Stockfish 11's main idea. But it is cool. So we got a stronger engine now. So maybe some of the analysis, if I can remember from 2 months ago, actually will need to be updated. But most of this is not really with the intention of, here's how you can play this and beat other humans. This is mostly just like a parlor trick, mostly for curiosity's sake, on how you could just fool one particular engine. And in this case, it's Stockfish. So I guess this move came as a surprise. I was told that Benjamin Bach was surprised by h4, but he continued very much like the computer. Rook to g1, h takes, and the rook comes into h2. Full-on activity. That's what it's all about. And this is sacrificing some material. This one looks unappealing because you'd be letting the queen in, but taking the bishop. Like, what's going on? How is this going to be working out? Well, bishop to e6. And in here it does appear that I saw a lot of black. I got excited, but I realized it's mostly me. It's mostly me. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's mostly me playing this line. That's why it scores so well for black. But queen to d4. This is still the Stockfish move. And it looks brilliant, right? You're way up in material. Black has this little bit of an attack. All you really need to do is trade some pieces off. Let's just get these queens off. But this allows the brilliant move, which is still prep, bishop to c4. This absolutely amazing move. And this is where the tide begins to turn in this game. Here's where we get to see an original move. So the main move is actually bishop takes c4. This is the move that Stockfish played. But that's not the move that was played in the game. In the game, it went queen takes c4, which I guess opponents have also played. So the mate that it should go, at least according to Stockfish, is bishop takes, and now knight to e5 is actually the main point. So here there's a whole bunch of forks potentially on the f2 square, basically no matter what you do. So knight to d2 is given, but here you can simply grab that knight. Now, you pretty much have to, no matter what else you do, there's going to be this fork here. Like if you take back with a queen or you take with a king, there's still going to be forks on f3. So basically, now is the time to give up the queen. And after bishop takes d2, it looks kind of for a second like maybe black actually is the one taking charge. But here, rook h1 with the idea of coming down pretty much forces us to castle, and the bishop has to move away. And this is where kind of the game begins. This is like where the starting position was for my game against Stockfish, and I was able to hold this. It's a crazy imbalance. I guess the pawns are the same, but white has 2 bishops and a rook for a queen, which is some sort of insane imbalance. In the game, you chuck these pawns. You try to get as much activity by chucking these guys. Stockfish brought his rook in, took all my pawns while I was busy attacking, and somehow it all balanced out and was able to hold it together in the end. But that is not what we saw in our featured game of the day. We saw queen takes, and this suddenly gives black a lot of hope that this could suddenly be very good, because knight e5 was played, which is excellent, because it's, okay, we're gaining some tempo, but we're focusing on this f3 square. And I won't be able to I'll do one hydrate, but we're in kind of YouTube mode here, so this will be my only hydrate. And we have some ideas of removing a defender, of the f3 square, which I believe is what happened. So yeah, the queen went to d4, rook takes e2. This is fantastic stuff. The king takes, queen takes f3. The king is basically forced to go back to e1. And after knight to d3, we can see that this is a little bit uncomfortable. The queen is controlling all the squares. You could play king to d2, which actually maybe is the best move, but the Grandmaster decided to just sacrifice the queen. If king to d2, I suppose the worry is rook to d8, which, obviously looks a bit worrisome, and the computer somehow holds this. Okay, so like it trades and plays king to c2, only move, king to c2, which allows sort of this trade, and you're going to end up with some weird positions. It's always going to be this crazy imbalance, like with a bunch of minor pieces and a rook for a queen, but the king's also here, and some of these pawns are weak, so it all balances out somehow, but this is definitely not an easy position for either side to play, really. So, not what happened in the game, though. He took with the queen, and look, black has some life. Queen takes d3. Again, weird imbalance, but it does have to do with kind of look where the king is, and look how well the coordination is. So even though white is probably technically up material, right? He's got a rook and 2 minors for a queen. Black is still under attack. All right, one last hydrate. But we can't ruin a YouTube lecture by hydrating nonstop. Okay, so the game continued. Bishop to f4, best move. Takes a pawn and gets castled. So this is looking good. Knight to d2 was played. Queen to f5, threatening both g5 and, more importantly, threatening to take the knight because there's this huge pin. So the knight went to f3, queen to c2. And to my disappointment, the game ended. We saw this simple repetition. Fool Dan. How could you? Possibly. Although it's really, we have the engine on, so it's easy to see. But it's not so obvious. Obviously, this is probably the first move that you'd see. Maybe you see something like rook to d3 with a lot of chances for black. But okay, let's be fair. You're playing a Grandmaster, and you got this crazy imbalanced position. The dude's telling you can't play the Stafford against me, and you have this opportunity to just make a draw. So Dan did decide to go for it. Hard to blame him. And who knows? Even though black is better, the wild imbalance. You never know what would have happened if the game just continued from here. It was Dan's choice. He could take the draw or try to play for a win. Takes the draw, and hard to fault the guy. But I thought this was really cool, and it actually kind of reminded me that when I did my video, I had actually had a look. The way I did this, I did a dumb thing. I did it in the worst way possible. Here's how I actually prepared for this thing. The way I prepared for this lecture was I actually memorized seven or eight different lines, like to completion, some of them being like 80 moves long and really boring endgames that lead to a draw, which is what I did for some of these lines. There was a couple that were interesting, though. A smarter way to do it is probably just try to farm for one line and just keep playing until the computer gives you the one line that you're trying to get, and then you win, and it's the most beautiful line, and boom. But there are some other interesting lines that I never actually revealed. So if you guys will allow me, I would like to actually kind of demonstrate some of these other moves. In particular, castles. I think I wasn't quite satisfied with the beauty of this line. But castling is actually now the main computer line, and it's the second most played. So F3 we've kind of had a look at. But castling also, it is possible to defeat Stockfish. Not even just draw, but it's possible to defeat it. The details, though, are very complicated. And with all of these positions, I was always trying to make sacrificing this bishop work. So yeah, these are the secret lines. This has not been revealed yet. It's also 2 months old, so maybe I won't remember it. Maybe Stockfish 12 will play better. But if I remember right, in this line, you actually were able to leave this guy hanging, which the computer will happily accept and announce that it's about +6. Now, there are some really, really beautiful lines after rook to d8. But I don't think I could actually ever make them work. So I settled for a different move. And I think this is the one move. The end, though, if we get the same ending, there's a very beautiful conclusion here to this line. But this move particularly didn't strike me as so beautiful. But just have the idea of potentially getting onto the H file. So if F3, for example, the one thing that Stockfish doesn't know about me is that I'm not retreating, okay? That's my pieces, they're just not going backwards. I'm going forwards. And H4, I believe, is the way to go. If we're remembering this right. The point is, after this capture, we now play rook to d8. And if I remember right, it was playing queen to c2. I'm trying to remember. There's other ideas. Like sometimes it comes all the way out here, kind of attacking the pawns. Sometimes you can block with the knight. Queen to c2, I believe, is the line I had analyzed for my Stockfish match. Where after takes, queen h7, we get some sort of dangerous attack. And king to f2, you can see it's already going down. That's actually kind of interesting. It's now at only +4. But king f2, check. This forces king to f3. Everything else loses. You know, you can play around for yourself. Everything else loses. And here, there's a winning move for black. So can you guys find it before Stockfish finds it? Who knows? This is actually the beautiful moment. This is the position where you can play something that's just so off the radar that Stockfish doesn't see it. I guess the analysis has ended at depth 22 here, so it's not thinking anymore. Guys, like it would be something that Stockfish is looking at, you know. Rook d5. This is actually kind of on the same sort of lines. We're trying to open up. They both have these ideas, right? We're trying to open up these lines. This is kind of a huge hint. But yeah, we're obviously trying to open up lines against the white king. G4, you mean G5. G5. That's not it, but it does stop the move that white wants to play next, which is bishop to f4. It hangs the pawn. I don't know. Things might work. Boom! Daniel Cohen. Boom! Boom! F5. Stockfish doesn't believe it. Oh, it's starting to come around. Oh, it's starting to come around. Boom! And then I believe it was playing here. We can check out G5. G5 is a draw, if I remember right. G5 is like a draw line because queen H5. I'm just kind of mildly interested in what it suggests. I remember this line being a draw, but this is not what it was playing. It was playing bishop to f4, where, yeah, G5 looks to be correct. Did I take first or G5? I think it is G5. Takes, now takes. And at some point, when the king has to go here, yeah, this all looks very familiar. Suddenly he's going to have to block like this. Takes, and then both of these moves were like good. It was something like this. I guess he doesn't take here. He plays bishop to f4. And I'm gonna be a little fuzzy on the memory, and using Stockfish isn't gonna help me solve these. But somehow you can memorize like 80 moves. It probably starts with queen to g4. So suddenly this doesn't quite look right. But in any case, there's this f5 move that it doesn't see coming. So yeah, I don't know. F5 is just kind of where it ends, and then somehow you can win. There probably are a bunch of draws, and obviously if somebody wants to take this on and play this as white for some crazy reason, they probably can find improvements left and right at every single turn. But okay, I just thought there was some interesting stuff there. What else did I do? The one that I was never happy with at all was this line, where you can actually play bishop to f3. I thought this one was actually the most problematic. This is one of the more interesting tries. I could never win doing something cool. This just simply doesn't work. One problem is, in these kinds of lines where you're giving up this guy for no apparent reason, if white hasn't castled and the H-file opens up, it's just too easy for white to trade rooks and consolidate all of this without getting... And black never really gets a massive attack. It never could find anything. And I think I had to settle for just lame stuff. And by lame, I mean I had to go here, and I had to go back. I was looking at everything. I'm trying to go here and here and here and here. I'm trying like every single move. Nothing was ever really working. But I think after going back, somehow you memorize a whole bunch of moves. You can get like a draw, although it was like crazy, and I think it tricks me a lot of the times. So I think I said I could beat Stockfish about 20% of the games. We'd draw about 80, and I'd lose about 5. Those 5% were in this line. But a lot of the times it's a draw, but it could just play something I wasn't expecting and then just beat me, because whatever. If I'm not expecting it, you have no chance in a crazy line against a computer. Also interesting, though, is every now and then it was playing a totally different line. Not as commonly, but it was playing this move, pawn to f3, which is sort of a totally different idea for white altogether. And I don't know. I was actually, so this one I was looking at a little bit more recently. I was looking at it at this morning, actually. But knight to h5 followed by f5 was kind of the main idea. I assume, like all of my Stafford knowledge, like the rest of you, I probably got this idea from an Eric Rosen game, if I'm not mistaken, because he's the guy. He's the go-to guy. Obviously, Eric Rosen is. If you want to actually learn how to play against humans in the Stafford Gambit, he's the go-to guy. But an interesting idea in this line, and this is actually not such a bad move, and it kind of is premised on the fact that black can't go here just yet. The point is, after this capture, after this check, this is sometimes a winning idea, but queen to e2 will be what white plays, and this open e-file can cause some damage. So I was a bit wondering, what if we kind of stray away from what everybody's been doing? And what happens if we play bishop to e6? The idea is we're trying to threaten to go here. So if we play like most humans have played on Lee chess, d4, we now have this opportunity of taking on e4. The point is, now that the e-file is closed, this is a lot closer to working. Although, check this out. After here, check. If you go to d2, obviously g3 will just allow this fork. You can go to d2, and after it takes, white can get some sort of advantage after king to c3. So, yeah, okay. You know, if people want to go here, if people want to play this as white, yeah, sure. I'd roll the dice. I'd take my chances here as black. King's on c3, and we have a lot of opportunities to possibly attack. I don't know. I'd take my chances. But another interesting idea was if you go to this second move, which actually scores tremendously well, and you look at d3, there are some other interesting attacking ideas. So bishop to c5, and it should be mentioned too that white's normal plan actually involves playing like c3 and d4. So if you just start in this line and you just play like c5, they play c3, and then if you just make some random move, they play d4, and you know you get into a little tricky situation where even though it looks like all of your stuff is out, you're getting ready, you can move your queen, you can castle queenside, whatever. You know, it's possibly pretty good for white. But looking for new ideas, an interesting line is d3, and only now bishop to c5. If they do go for this, it looks like the computer likes to do weird stuff, like g6, bishop h6, and this seems to be one of the main moves that the computer comes up with. Sometimes there's a bishop on c5, and computers even spot you can bring this back and put it on h6. There's something about this square. The computer really seems to like it. But yeah, like if you go here and they go here, you can play like this to make it harder to play d4. And it seems to be an idea that the computers are hot about. But if d3, bishop to c5, let's check out one particularly cool line. Let's say c3. Queen to e7. Let's just make a couple moves here. And d4. Okay, in all of these positions, whenever you get a position like this in the Stafford, it always seems like the most flexible and best move is just to go back bishop to b6. But possible is castling. Okay, doesn't seem too horrible. And I was testing this, I guess, against Stockfish 11, and it didn't play any of these moves. It was playing bishop to e2, and it was saying, all right, this one's great. Where, again, it feels like you should go back. And with other engines, they're actually like, this is very close to equal. Stockfish likes this for white. White's up a pawn, after all. And I think you should go back. If you really want to play this the right way, you should go back. Something that doesn't work, but I thought I'd point it out just because it's particularly interesting, is knight to h5, which will lead to some very nice attacking ideas. Where after castles, I experimented with a few moves here. And this is mostly just to give you guys like a little, this line's more like, here's a behind the scenes of how these things kind of evolve and how these openings take place, at least when I'm studying them. One of the first things I tried was pawn to g5. But I think the problem was after knight to d2, blocking, so now this bishop is like truly hanging. What did I come up with? I was trying to sacrifice. Oh, okay. Actually, I think I remember here. There's one line that I bet I could just crush all of you with. It's none of these moves. So hang on a second. Let's do this for just a second. Now, let me play against you guys just for 1 minute. Some people have found it. Boom! Rook to d4. This looks incredibly scary. And if I take your engine away, it's even scarier. I'll let you know that this is like the best and only move. Bishop takes d4. Obviously, I mean, I think most people, there's rook f2 and there's king to h1. Here you can play king to h1. Knight to g3. And this doesn't work, but it looks really scary because now after h takes, we can put this queen somewhere where we're threatening a checkmate. So for example, queen to f6, threatening to come over here with mate. You have to play the next moves very, very, very carefully for white. And if you do, then you win. So I'll entertain some ideas, see if anybody can defend this perfectly. I'll also let you know Stockfish right now says it's about +4, which is probably right. But yeah. So how do you avoid getting checkmated? So f4, with the idea of bishop h5, Einsteiny. Holy cow. Okay, so here, and now the idea is bishop to h5. Beautiful, beautiful. Boop, g4. And this again will be a little bit of a test. So we're getting to, this could be very dangerous. So I guess I don't know because I haven't tested this against humans to know if this is actually something that's easy for people to see. Knight f3, only move, really the only move. And it has the idea of blocking on h2. So if you take the bishop, you can take on h2. If we take the knight, though, so this is kind of the main defensive idea. And we're never quite fast enough to get something here. And so I tried to make things work. Because if we try to do this, white always has f5. So I'm trying to make like f5 work. Can I stop that idea, somehow get a rook over here to the h-file? I could never really do it. And another idea is that if you take this knight, it goes like this, f5 maybe, I don't know. But anyways, so this didn't work out very well for black. Okay, so I returned here and I'm like, all right, I got another idea. What if I play f5 with the idea of just playing f4 and then basically doing the same sort of attack? Maybe this will be a little bit better. Okay, so the computer engine move, at least right now, is bishop to e3. I can't remember if that's what I looked at. Knight to d2 is now popping up as the main move. I guess you guys can't see it. Let me put it back on for you guys to see just for the moment. But, you know, knight to d2 was the move. And now what if knight to f4 with very similar ideas? Or maybe here, can I guess maybe did I think, can I take here? Yeah. Okay, so this is a little bit different, and this is way trickier. Okay, so watch this. In this position, rook takes d4. Takes. And now what do you want to do? I'll give the chat another opportunity. It might be a bit of a tell that I'm asking you here, but you have to be very, very, very careful. I probably won't ask you. Rook f2, only move. King h1 just loses. f4, I believe. Stockfish actually doesn't see it right now, so I'm not able to just cheat. But this is just like unstoppable. So if, for example, queen to e1, knight to g3, you can give up your queen. Or you can play here, queen somewhere, anywhere. Queen g5, queen f6, queen wherever. And you're dead. So you're never really going to be able to make an escape on this diagonal. And I'm just threatening to take this pawn. If you take me, you're going to get checked. You can block with your queen or whatever, but you're going to get mated. But my next move is just to take, and you're not going to be able to stop it. This is just mate. What about g4 after f4? So you're talking about g4 here. So I have the engine in front of me, so it's easy. The move is apparently here. If we can trust Stockfish, and it says it's -7. The line it gives is here, queen h4. Looks like rook g2. Now it's thinking about knight to f1. Giving up the rook. Okay, so I don't know if you'd want to go for this. This line looks a little bit dangerous. Something like this is a very promising attack for black, especially after this move. It looks like now you need to give up a bishop at least, but knight, you're actually winning a queen. If you, I guess, probably are a little bit more human, this was probably sort of a main idea. Just bishop to h3 is incredibly strong. So, yeah. It's always easy with the computer. But no matter what, there's some sort of massive attack it's very similar in all of these lines. But okay. So there's lots of rooms to experiment here. And I don't necessarily always trust Stockfish. It says it's like -7 and the attack is massive. It's kind of easy to trust. But anyways, as it were, now we're here. Yeah, knight to g3 is the winning idea. So the only move back once upon a time is rook to f2. And here's where perfect play. Just some beautiful, beautiful play. I think actually a lot of people would just get checkmated here. This is not the Stockfish move, but I think this is what I looked at. And here you can defend just absolutely geniusly. What does it want here? It wants like here. Knight b3 might have been what I looked at. This is actually interesting because let's put this back on so you can see that I'm not even playing the Stockfish moves at this point. I had looked at how can I just do the same thing, and if knight to b3, where it wants me to cash in now, I was thinking, what if I just drop back? And now here comes like some perfect defense. Bishop d2, which has this kind of nice idea of going over here, getting out of the way of the rook. Queen h4. And yeah, after bishop to e1, it was something like this that it was holding up well. And then it plays some pretty genius moves. Something like this, where in certain situations, if h3 and we capture, and some of these pieces are gone. Sometimes in some lines, it was using this bishop as like a decoy. So there's like a lot of crazy behind the scenes tactics that are going on. And I guess what I tried to do, what I wondered to myself is, can I play rook to f8, which actually threatens checkmate? The threat is queen takes h2. And I can just barely hang on. The first time I actually played it, it played like a4 and just lost. It didn't see queen takes h2. But after queen takes h2, you just bring the rook up and it's checkmate. It's unstoppable. So it's got to play e5, preventing me from coming in. And yeah, and you can keep playing around and you can keep trying. And these are the kinds of positions where maybe you're going to be able to defeat an engine, because it's like, there's this long-term attack. There's something might just crack long term. But anyways, if you keep going, it plays some pretty brilliant stuff. Queen c2, rook c1, they're kind of similar. I thought rook c1 was the stronger way of doing it. But the point is you're trying to block my bishop now. So I'm like, okay. In a lot of lines, my bishop's getting blocked. So I'm trying to put this guy here. But then there's knight c5, which almost never is going to take this. Sometimes he's setting up some pretty crazy tricks. But basically, I want this guy here. White is trying to get like h3 in a situation where it defends really well. How did this go? I didn't play here. I think I was saving the bishop. There's some weird stuff. I'm not going to be able to remember any of it. But, in the queen c2 lines, actually, this must be what I'm thinking about. There's this one idea. So, okay, he's trying to put a knight on c5. So if I keep my bishop over here, knight to c5, for example, let's pretend that we save this guy. There's queen to c3, which is a pretty crazy move. It's kind of eyeballing this bishop with some ideas that maybe you're going to take my knight in a lot of cases. You're going to be able to take the knight, and if I take back, in a lot of lines, my bishop's hanging. Also, bishop to a6 is very often a threat. So you can play like bishop to a6. If you take, you're just wide open on the b file. The queen slowly starts to come in. So there's all sorts of stuff. And if you defend perfectly, obviously, this just doesn't quite work. And there's a lot of more cool ideas. But it's kind of fun just doing this. If some people that are curious, they might want to do this. But anyway, so if you do this, you're going to have to play some line where you put your bishop back. I want to hopefully inspire people. Hopefully people find this kind of interesting. And I spend a lot of time just out of interest playing these crazy complicated lines against computers on my own. That's what I do in my free time. And it's just kind of cool. You can just see how you can play against different computers, trying out different ideas, and really experimenting. So that's it. Say goodbye to YouTube. Hopefully, some of this might become a video. I don't know. We'll have to double check, see if any of this was interesting or not. But hopefully, some people find it fascinating. I'm really into this kind of stuff. And congrats once again to Fool Dan for getting a big draw against the Grandmaster. He made it look easy. Played the magic line against the Grandmaster, made it look easy. And thanks to everyone in 2020. We got to 20,000 subscribers in 2020. It's been a heck of a year. I've gotten a lot of presents this year. I got this nice purple sweater. Well, I got one present, but my real present, and it's corny, but I'm being entirely honest, is all the support. Everybody that's been watching on Twitch, subscribing on YouTube. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys are having a happy holiday, whatever you celebrate. And that's it. I'll see you guys for another video.